The Tavern's gotta be one of the most iconic and useful buildings in Dungeons & Dragons. It's where hundreds of quests start, where you'll meet plenty of interesting characters, and so it's really a useful building to have in starting out with as a beginning terrain building dungeon master. So let's get into it. To start out, I cut out cardboard pieces for the walls and a rectangle to act as support for the top edges of the walls to keep them perpendicular to each other. I was careful to keep these edges all square since this is meant to be a well-cared-for tavern, not a sloppy job. I glued it all together with hot glue since it dries fast and I am impatient. I also glued the support near the top of the walls since I intend to make the buildings with the walls attached to the ceilings, not the floors. So that way you can use the full floor for playing. This is right about when I realized how much bigger this building was going to be than I envisioned. I haven't ever played D&D before, so I really don't know how big these things should be, but it seemed big. Then I cut out strips of XPS foam. I tried to keep it as thin as possible, but without a foam cutter, that's a little bit difficult. Still doable, but the pieces are a little bit thicker. And just gotta be careful not to cut yourself, per usual, when using a knife. I glued these to the cardboard on the corners to cover up the nasty edges, and then I added some embellishments with these same strips to make it look like an old style farmhouse or something like that, with some wooden beams on angles. I started with hot glue for this part, and then I realized it was melting the foam, so I switched to Elmer's glue. Next, I cut out a roof piece from the bent part of a box, and I just glued it on. I did test out how the roof fit to make sure that the XPS foam bits weren't in the way, and so I had to cut off some of those angles. I also cut some triangle-shaped pieces from cardboard as an extension of the wall up under the roof, and then I cut one first, and then I used it as a template for the other side of the roof so it'd be fairly symmetrical. I just cut that out with the scissors. Then I cut some shingles out of craft foam. and I'm going to glue these onto the roof. But first, grab your wire brush. By dragging the wires across the XPS foam, you can make some nice lines that look like wood grain. This would work better if you have a small wire brush with all the wires still straight, unlike mine. I found that if I keep the brush perpendicular to the surface, the wires tend to catch on the foam, but at a shallower angle, pulling it across the foam worked very well and left much cleaner lines. Next, I covered the roof with some Mod Podge. This protects the roof and hides the brown cardboard, but I like to make my drying time twice as effective, so I also used it to glue on the shingles. Then I covered everything with my black Mod Podge paint mix, just to give it all a good seal and protect all the textures and especially the foam. I did not glue on the top shingles with Mod Podge because it takes a long time to dry and the craft foam didn't want to stay bent. So instead I used hot glue, which fortunately did not melt the craft foam. After everything was assembled, I did go back with some hot glue and try filling the corrugated cardboard. I tried cover it with craft foam first, but the foam wouldn't stay bent around it, so that didn't really work. The hot glue kind of worked and it hid the worst of the edges, but if anybody's got a better way of doing this, please let me know in the comments down below. Now it's time for base coats. For the walls, I used white, which didn't cover very well. Then I painted the wood, which was a waste of time since I messed it up when I went back and repainted the walls. First tan, then cream. Then I went back and repainted the wood brown. I gave everything a light dry brushing. For the roof I used a lightish gray. For the wood and walls, I used light gray mixed with brown. I was surprised how much better the walls looked with this little bit of grayish-brown dry brushing. It really brought out some nice textures and made them look a little bit older and less pristine, which I think really finished the look. And finally I covered everything with a homemade black wash to tone down the brightest highlights. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content like this for Dungeons & Dragons and terrain in general. If you'd like to see something in particular, please put a comment down below and let me know, and I will definitely consider that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the future.